to go live for the hell of it, I guess, really. I wanted to make ArnieCon this year. I wanted to make ArnieCon last year. No dice. Bummer. So uh, it's going on right now, and I feel left out. I'm not going to cry to mommy, but I just figured I think I'll do something and hang out and try to feel like I have some participation. So just kind of twiddling thumbs because there's a bureaucratic uh, time frame that I have to wait through. And in the interim, just looking for shit to do. So I thought I'd see if anybody would join the live, hang out, talk and seach, that sort of stuff. Let's see here. Okay. Hiccup. Okay. It's Friday. I doubt anybody will come, but we'll see. Oh, God. So, anyway, first thing is, can you hear me now? I'm going to try a screen share and see if we can get this to work. Let's see. Can you see that? How about that? Can you see that? Let's see. Let me get the things arranged. There we go. Hello. Can you see my screen shared window? It's got a map on it. I got to test my gear, make sure it works. Should see a map with the words "the land of Norn Ka" on it. Good, thank you very much. My default position on technology is it isn't going to work, so I just got to always verify. I'm kind of a half glass empty type of dude when it comes to technology. But anyway, you know what helps? There we go. That helps. So what I'm doing with this is I want to use a system I called Well, I didn't call it that. I should say that is called Imaginations, and that's just a funny little pun on imagination. And these are countries, worlds, continents that are quickly put together for the purposes of wargaming in a fictitious space. These need cleaning. So I'm going to take the different countries here on this map. That's a little better. I'll show you what I'm talking about. I don't know. Hopefully you can see this on the screen. You can see the yellow that shows up as I mouse around. That yellow is to show the border. So the continent has all these different countries. So, so each country in Imaginations is given some basics: a name, obviously, a governmental system, an economy, a culture, some military tradition, symbols. You know, what's your country's flag? What's your military crest of arms, stuff like that. back in the day when guys like Tony Bath, whom were doing this stuff in the late 50s and early 60s, were doing it, they would sometimes come up with a language specific. That's cool, but I don't know if it's really necessary. And it's quite hard. So we're going to not do that part, as neat as it is. Anyway, so the purpose of this is I was talking about domain play in RPGs a night or two ago, and I wanted to do a demonstration of it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do domain play. And if you're not familiar with domain play, it's just simply a kind of jargon word for wargaming with a little bit of an RPG bent on it. Mass battles, stuff like that. So I thought I'd do fantasy because at least when I'm on the internet, it seems that that has the lion's share of attention and popularity. Which is cool. I'm kind of more a sci-fi person myself, but we'll just do a fantasy one for now. Maybe later I'll do like a Star Wars version. So let's take some of the smaller outfits first, or smaller countries. Here's one we have to really zoom in on. There we go. That is a ridiculously hard thing to say. Glondithind. Glondithind. Okay. These were randomly generated. So, which is fine. But we'll take this one first. So, what should we give it for a government system? Maybe gonna get a notepad out, excuse me. Maybe we'll doesn't really matter actually. How about just straight democracy for this one? Dun, dun, dun. So what the purpose is you come up with government, economy, culture, things like that, basic geography, ecology, and then you give it a military size based on the size of its economy and the size of its population, and you have all the things you need for the basics on a nation. You do that for each one of them on the map, and then you do a little bit of wargaming and role playing in the new world that you've created. So that's the idea here. So we'll give it a democracy. Let's hide this so we get it out of the way. And let's see what else. Sorry about the pause there. So it took me. All right. So based on the fact that it's near water, it would certainly have at least portions of it would be a trade and perhaps fishing type economy would be involved. The maps that I have here don't really get too detailed into specific hexes or terrain. You kind of make that up, but I think it would be I'm going to make the continent kind of a European climate type of thing. So it'd be along this lake, it might be somewhat cold, but there probably would be some farmland. There are some mountains that go into it. Um, so mining, fishing, and agriculture, or farming agriculture, that is, and trade. So something maybe they manufacture out of the mountains, or for making metal or something like that. And they can trade that for other things. So I think that would be enough. So the point of doing all this in order to war game is that uh, cultural, political, economic issues tend to be at the heart of conflict. So uh, what you play with a domain system is each player has a country. That country has its details, whatever, that we're coming up with. And the idea is to run the country in the best way you can, to develop it, and so that the citizenry thrives and that you're making money and all that sort of stuff, kind of like a Sim City or Sim Earth or something like that. But as you play, inevitably, somebody's going to want to get aggressive because it's fun to, or just because they're greedy and they want to get some sort of resource that the neighbors have that they don't, or something like that. So there's a diplomatic and military portion to the whole thing where you're trying to avoid war because war is expensive and destructive. Try to keep peace by having deals and diplomatic arrangements with your neighbors and things like that. So it begins to build intrigue and uh, associations, rivalries, enemies, and eventually um, there's likely to be some conflict, which is at the heart of good drama and gaming. So that's basically what you're doing with a domain thing. So that's why we're doing all this. That's the intent here. So have you been to any of these lives before? Seen anything else we do here at Campaigns and Conquest? I think at Twitter I call my Twitch. I haven't changed my name. I'm probably still calling it Command Post Gaming. But um, I should get around to it. We thought Campaigns and Conquest was kind of a better title for the show, at least. Okay, not lately, but you have been there. Okay, cool. So we were doing world building with a different map, and I'm going to get back into that. I prefer to do it with my co-host. She's been on a little bit of a emergency leave, some family issues. I try to stream the games I run, but that doesn't seem to work. I either have a problem with bandwidth that can't handle having 5 people connected to it or whatever, or I have some player who goes, I'd rather not be on the internet in that manner, which I respect privacy, so of course I just don't do it. Um, oh, good, thank you. Yeah, my co-host came up with it. Thought it was a little bit better, so I got to switch it on Twitch though. I always associated Twitch with video games. Never really thought about it being something to talk about tabletop games, but I see more and more people mention it in relation to tabletop games, so that's why I started connecting my streams to that as well. So that's where we're at with that. So this just came up because I wanted to go to a convention this weekend, but I don't own a car, so that makes it hard. And So they're live streaming it, and I was like, this is kind of a bummer. I really wanted to play what they're playing, but so I turned on the live just to do something because, I mean, it's not going to ruin my life, but it's a bummer. So it's much funner to do than to play. I stream my games because I've a lot of people do, and there must be some utility to it. But for me, I can't for the life of me understand what kind of entertainment value watching somebody else play a tabletop game could be. It doesn't really seem like a spectator sport to me. I mean, even video games to some degree seem like, why would you watch that? Although I found myself watching people play them, so I guess I kind of more understand it now. But um, anyway, so now the one thing I need to learn, I'm still a very new streamer, um, and I need to figure out how to get an overlay that'll stay on the screen no matter how many windows I switch back and forth from, if such a thing exists. So, um, yeah, I could have taken a bus, but as much as I wanted to go, bus rides aren't my thing. The Greyhound service around my area, I used it a couple of times, and oh, so I just I didn't want to go that bad. 6 hours on a bus. Nah. So I saw some pretty unsavory things last bus ride I was on. It was dirty. It was long. It ran late. Some of the people were a little out of bounds. Yeah, yeah. It was. I, I wanted to take a hot shower real bad once I got off that bus. It was dirty, and um, yeah, they were. Some of the people were less than savory. So I said, I don't want to go to that bad. I tried to get some rides, but I'm kind of out of the way. So for anybody to come and pick up, so it didn't work out, which is too bad. I wish I had a car, but once COVID hit, I figured, well, I don't think I need a car. I didn't want to pay insurance. It required repair. I didn't want to, who knew what was going on? So I cashed out thinking, oh, well, if I need one later, I'll buy one again. I'll get some used car. And then the job stopped during COVID too. So anyway, enough of my problems, but needless to say, I haven't picked up a car yet. Really don't plan to either. Because why own something just to go on a couple of trips here and there? I usually don't go anywhere. So it's never a problem until that one time like now where it's like, wish I still had the car. Yeah, I don't. And that's the other thing. I mean, I used to drive to work a 45-minute commute. And every once in a while, when you're a kid, and you're 16 or 18 or whatever, and you got a car and it's a nice day, you enjoy a drive, especially if you got, the windows open, fresh air, and, it's nice to see the countryside. But in the world of adulting, driving on those highways, woo. So I had enough of that anyway. I don't miss that at all. But when you have to thumb your way across a whole state to get to a convention, then all of a sudden they seem like a really good idea. Oh well. So all right, so we got fish, farming, mining, raid. Okay. Boom, 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 boom. So then what I'll do is I do use, some people find this, AI is a thing that's really become a controversial deal. And I don't steal art with it or anything like that, but I will use it for certain things like this. I'm going to tell it to, because I don't think it's hurting anybody to do this. Come up with a gross domestic product in gold pieces based on a fictitious fantasy population of 3 million. The economy is mining of ore, farming, fishing, and trading. So what I'll do is ask it these questions. I mean, is this really, who's being victimized by using AI to do something like this? Like say I'm not having it make artwork or anything like that. So it gives me a random number. It talks too much when you ask it these questions. Instead of just answering, it gives you like this 15 paragraph explanation as to what it's doing. All right. So, okay. So it gives me so out of 3 million population, say you're receiving 10 gold pieces per person, giving you 30 million gold pieces per year. Wow. All right. As a gross domestic product. So, yeah, it's just, easy to come up with. So it even itemized. I don't know how this would be relevant, but it is interesting that it does stuff like this. It itemized it. 25% of the economy is mining, which equates to 7.5 million. 35% is farming, which equates to 10.5 million. Fishing 4.5, 15% at 4.5 million, and the trading is 7.5 million at 25%. So, so that's kind of neat. I guess you could use that. So, for example, let's say you're in a war, and the harbors get wrecked by the enemy, by a naval fleet or something like that. And it takes 6 months to get back online, and it tanks the fishing economy. So for that 6 months during that period of the game, you would reduce the 30 million a year in this country's income by 4.5 million. So there's stuff like that you could do. Make a little economic warfare out of it. So with the 30 million pieces now, what I would do is, let's say I'm going to play one of the ones I like to use is BECME. D&D's BECME. The expert and I think what do they call the champion? The one in between expert and master was like champion or something like that. I think those three, but mostly expert and master, have like mass warfare rules, and how much it costs to equip an army and build a fortress or a castle and stuff like that. So if you wanted to use that as a means to game this out, then you have, here's what this country can do with 30 million a year. You'd take a portion of that. You'd have to, infrastructure and other things would have to be taken out of it. So you could actually probably have ChatGPT do that too, and come up with a military budget based on that GDP, and then give that to the player and say, here's what you can do with, here's how much money you have to raise an army and fortify this area and give it all its military bases and everything like that, stoke it out that way. And that would be your starter. Then every year after that, that's how much money you have to upgrade or replace soldiers, or, plus upkeep for whatever you buy and stuff like that. And that's domain play. As far as role playing within it, the player can have his own character, set a level, I usually do like 30 if it's BECMI or something like that. That's way, way high enough. And you just roll out the character. The character can be a commander. He can do whatever he wants, or you can have hirelings and send them out on missions and play some of the characters and do whatever you want that way. Um, I like to play these out like the only analogy I can come up with is like Rebellion, the Star Wars PC game. It's kind of old. I know there's a board game about it now, but first there was the PC game called Rebellion, and it was you had your armies and your fleets with the spaceships, and then you had all the characters and um, some troops or commandos and like special forces. So the character heroes would be like, and be like playing the RPG. They would go off in that game. They were sent to do missions, diplomacy or recruiting or sabotage or inciting uprisings and stuff like that. There's a whole list of missions you could send them on. You could also send certain commandos to do things like that, like rebel infiltrators were good at sabotage and stuff like that. So there's your RPG session. You're going to send some adventurers to go, whatever, find a magic item that is rumored to be in the foothills of the mountains that might be useful in prosecuting war or something like that. And that's your RPG. But at the same time, you're also controlling this country, and they may be fighting a war, trying to prevent fighting a war, something like that. So and if you have enough people, which is unlikely because it's hard to get so many people to play, especially online, but if you got a lot of people, you can have both. So I did it with Star Wars for a while, and I had enough people where it was fun. We had some people who were playing the Empire, the bad guys, and they were military commanders, and they were out fighting the rebellion in a sector, and the other players were rebel agents that were trying to steal weapons and funnel money into the rebellion and stuff like that, recruit people into it and all that. So it was this kind of adversarial game where half of them were on one side and half the players were on the other side. That's what they call patron play or whatever. Yeah. So that's it. Now, I mean, it's just the basics of it. You can take it in any direction you want and apply it to any genre you want. It works anywhere. Westerns, American Westerns. You can easily do that. You ever hear about the Lincoln County War, see the movie Young Guns, which was kind of this very exaggerated Hollywood take on an historical event called the Lincoln County War. You can have two sides playing against one another and stuff like that. Obviously, like I said, just Star Wars is a great example. It could easily work with Star Trek. Some people go, I don't like to play Star Trek because there's no combat. Well, there's no combat unless you want it to be. There's there's the Klingons and you can have all that. So you can go any direction you want. Even, noir or Cthulhu or investigative games can do that because once you've determined that there's some sort of infestation of evil or something like that in the area, it might take root. It might have some organization, even if it's chaotic. There may be, you can have, I'm not real great with analogies, but if you ever watch the Buffy episode, there was the Watchers, there's always the Men of Letters, whatever, some organization that's supposed to fight them and things like that. And you can have that kind of adversarial thing going on in a large setting. So, yeah, it really worked great with Star Wars. It was so much fun. We had the one session where the players would be the player characters, the rebel people. And then there would be a second session where the Imperial people would come in and it would, there was a couple of guys I had that were playing rebel commanders and would move around the fleets. And then if something happened in the same area that the rebel commandos were, then they'd all meet on the same day, and we'd have this big session where there was combat going on, or in some cases the Imperials were searching for the rebel commandos and stuff like that. So yeah, it would have worked better had I been able to get somebody to DM with me. Sometimes it gets a little involved enough that you might want to have an assistant running the game for you, with you. But it was a lot of fun. We enjoyed it. But eventually, people, oh, I got work now. My schedule changed. Oh, the kids are out of school. It kind of fades away. People stop playing and stuff like that. So, but we did it for several months at least with 15 people, and it was fun. And then it kind of went back down to 5 or 6 or whatever. But yeah, that's the system, and it's it doesn't even have to be an IP. You can just make it up like I did here with this map. Just come up with stuff. So I would just go through. Whoops, why'd that happen? Oh, because it uses my mouse wheel, and my mouse wheel is real finicky. But anyway, use all these different countries. So, and people would start talking about balance, but there's, the thing with balance is it wouldn't be interesting if everybody was just these homogenous, same size blocks of countries. Some countries are smaller than others for a variety of reasons. If you're smaller, you're probably not the only one out there that's smaller. You may want to go use your diplomacy. That can be its own RPG session or adventure where you're sent as emissaries of a country to a second country in attempts to try to make some sort of alliance, so that you can collectively defend against your larger neighbors, like these guys here. These two countries might make some alliance to try to counterbalance the larger one. And just because the land is larger doesn't necessarily mean that the country's richer or has a better military. When you have the machine, the AI doing the random choices, it may be a very desolate area that's large in size, but not that big in population, and the economy might not be as good because most of the land is not usable or something like that. So there's all different ways to have a kind of synergy or balance without limiting everything to being everybody has to be the same size and have the same amount of money, because it makes it fun to play from different perspectives. You have different challenges as a country than the one next to you, and then they all intermingle with one another to make a very interesting situation, kind of a Game of Thrones type of thing, which some people I've heard mock that idea, but I think it's a lot of fun to play that way. And then you've got to, and what happens is once this plays through, it starts to develop more. You start to look at the details of each country even further, and you might start getting some more details on specifics of the terrain of certain areas. I use random generators for a lot of it, but what kind of monsters might be in the area. And once you determine that for an area, write it down. And as you write all those notes down, now you have a fully functioning campaign world where you can do all sorts of separate adventures or make modules out or whatever. Making one of these things makes me tons of just stacks of different content for RPG, gaming and war games or whatever. And I have several of them. This program is great because it just randomly makes a fairly nice looking map. And then I take the map and I put it in Photoshop and tweak it and make it look unique and stuff like that. So that's what I do with this stuff. Now, if I get people to play, it's hard to get people to play online sometimes. So, but that's the general gist. see if anybody else is coming. I check my Twitter every once in a while, try to promote the thing. So, I'm making an RPG, so I'll probably use my RPG stuff to fill this one out instead of BECME. But BECME's a solid choice. There's always battle system with and the Dungeon Master's Guide for first edition AD&D. Most of these games have some sort of add-on or rule about how to build a castle or a fort in them. If not, you can always just kind of spitball something or use ChatGTP or some similar. It's like I say, as long as you're not, people don't like the art because it's stealing and all that, and I get it. But to have it just make up some basic, here's how much concrete costs to pour and lay in your world. How's that hurting anybody? And it makes it real easy to come up with a system without having to trudge through working out details with a pencil or just fire them right up. So I like to bring up my system. So first we'll have it. Let's see. So I'm telling you now, take out a portion of the above economy for defense, figuring out the cost for other issues like infrastructure, social safety nets. What else? Civic safety. Things like that. That ought to be enough. I'm sure if you got really Sim City, you could think of other things, but this is good enough. So I'll take this number, which will probably be a little high, but that's all right. Lots of yakety schmackety from the thing. Okay. Whoa. Sure putting out a lot of information for this one. But that's all right. Okay. So it gives me decide to put, and you can change this just by deciding as a ruler of the nation. Well, I need to increase. Right now, it gave me a 30% of the GDP is defense, and you can just with a little bit of math, you can change that. Well, we're going to have to turn down social safety nets, something like that, or miscellaneous. And put in miscellaneous, 35% miscellaneous. Maybe make that 15% or something, and dedicate the rest of the to the defense because you're going into a war economy or something like that. So you can play with it. But for now, we got 9 million gold pieces. So go to my sheets for creating things like this. And once I can find them. Well, anyway, we'll find that stuff. Yeah, I agree. I don't find this stuff. It's been a little hard to find, but yeah, I don't. I think that too. I'll use the art thing to make up something silly, just to put on social media or something like that. I know some people. Well, here's what I've determined. To me, the whole "it's stealing my art" thing, I don't know if that's really super accurate. It may be stealing your style. It may be collectively stealing from art in general because it's being trained on it. But I don't know if it's actually, you know, directly plagiarizing any particular creative work or anything like that. I think that if you said make up a speech, a fictitious speech from Abraham Lincoln, it would probably take a bunch of stuff that Abraham Lincoln actually said, so kind of uh, plagiarizing that point, sort of, but as long as you stay away from that stuff. I've had it make up stat blocks for D&D and West End game Star Wars, and it's great. It'll make an NPC in like 10 seconds. Excellent name and everything. So I use it for DMing in that realm. If they run into, if my party runs into somebody I wasn't planning for them to run into, or start talking to somebody I wasn't planning for them to talk to, or something like that, I just say, give me a Star Wars civilian from this planet, and it'll pump it up. And not just the stats. Sometimes it'll give it a little background story, it'll tell a little something about them, give them some personality, him or her. So yeah, it's great. Yeah. I like to use it for that sort of stuff. I've had it make up war game scenarios, stuff like that. Works really good. Um, but yeah, monetizing it, that's when people really start to get upset. And I understand. I'm not really out to make a buck with it, but it does make certain chores a lot easier. No doubt there. Hmm. Wow. So with 9 million, I can start building fortresses, or start maybe fortifying the ports, or putting troops in it or something like that, by outfitting them, and those kinds of actions, which makes things fairly simple. Just trying to get a list of things so we can. All right. There we go. So now we'll have it make. I even have the thing randomly generate an army. And the best thing to do is give it when you're it being the AI, is to tell it how big the population of the country is in general. Then it'll actually be typically will be smart enough to temper the size of the It doesn't always do things right. Just because you say you can only spend 9 million doesn't mean it's going to do it right, which it just did wrong. So sometimes it hiccups, but it's still a time saver even with these mistakes. So I just kind of had to reconfigure. But all righty. You have a good one too. So lesson learned. Hey, doing some work while you're chatting, I can't pat my head and rub my stomach at the same time. I end up stuttering and stalling and stuff like that. So that's a problem. Probably gets people bored. But anyway, now that I got the thing to behave properly, I've got oh yeah. Anywho, kind of getting through all my stuff. If anybody's out there that's listening, something that's also been a kind of a wrench in the gear for me lately is Windows 10 has decided to put a 10-second delay. It may not be 10 seconds, but it's a fairly long delay on opening up any folder. So that's kind of a hindrance. And if anybody knows how to do something about that, I had it happen before, and I don't remember that I had any solution for it other than profanity and angst, which really isn't a solution, but it sure does make you feel, but at least makes me feel better. But some update came and rectified the issue on its own, but it's come back. So if anybody knows what to do with that, it's the weirdest thing with Microsoft. I'm just getting some information to talk about here, but the weirdest thing about Microsoft is their website tends to be the least helpful. Every other website that's not associated with the company that has information about its product is a lot more thorough and accurate. But anyway, here we go. This is what I was looking for. So I have a cost in gold pieces for purchasing armies. And then that cost is, or the upkeep cost is a percentage of the total yearly. So if this is obviously you can have a bigger army than that, but just to keep the numbers low, if you had two groups of knights, which is I think my stand is 4 knights. That's 14 and per knight plus weaponry, and then there's the upkeep that comes along with it. So that's how you would create stuff in that situation. They give you a fairly sizable army at 9 million, but remember, you have to have something for upkeep, and upkeep is on everything. It's not just on the soldiers. It's on the equipment, it's on the infrastructure, it's on uh, everything. So it seems like a lot, and still until you start looking at the costs of, you know, upkeep, and that's before you start doing anything significant with them. Because in my system, you can do what you want, but in my system, and it may sound complicated, but it really isn't near as complicated as it may come off as. But I do have a cost in supply, and so if you start marching around, if you start laying siege, the price starts going up. You have to pay for extra equipment. You have to pay for extra everything, extra ammunition, extra food, all that sort of stuff. So, um, so the costs start piling up, and you start realizing that, wow, 9 million gold pieces seems like an unbelievable amount of money. I could probably, mm, maybe, you know, and it may end up not seeming like near enough money. You know, what is it, Homer that said this? I forget if it was Homer, but the sinews of war are infinite money. I think that was said by Homer. Could be wrong, but anyway, it's accurate. Whoever said it, and so, but those are the basics of how it works. Now I've taken this map. I don't know if you can see it with this way this thing does screen sharing. Let's see if we can get it to work. If anybody's here to look, there is. Let's try this. Hopefully this will work. As I say, I just assume. Now, providing you can see that, you can see how I put a hex grid over it. So that's one of the, not the final, but that's the next step after I've generated the map. Then I can put the hex map in there. Then I can put in more details and stuff like that, different symbology. And it becomes a war game, an RPG hex crawl map. That's pretty much it. Next time I'll get deeper into the combat system and such. There's actually two for my system. I have a built-in one, which is, I know everybody's into simplicity and such, and I'm not into being overly complex, but you can go too far in any direction. And the stuff that I have in the RPG for mass battles is pretty vague, pretty light. It's almost not, I mean, some people might think it's enough, but some people who want to play domain play might want to just go just the next level. It's not going to the extreme, but the next level is a system that they come up that was more like a miniature system, kind of more like a chain mail or a battle system. And it just adds a little bit of resolution to it. So it just plays out a little bit more detailed, but not insane. So, but I like to give options. So there's, regular and unleaded, if you will, as far as the game systems when it comes to mass combat and all that. So I see that I actually started I thought maybe Bill wasn't streaming, but it looks like he is, and maybe that's why no one's coming. So I don't know why I'm so dry all the time talking on this mic, but it makes me super dry. I'm not that nervous. Work on that too. Anyway, it's been about an hour. and it really is a David and Goliath. Everybody goes and watches uh, Bill Sylvie, and that's fine. He's good. It just, I'll put it to you this way: there's a lot of old TV shows that I didn't watch at the time because they were up against something big like Cosby Show, and then I went back and watched them and realized that a gem of a show didn't make it very long because it was up against some massive thing, um, some phenomenon. Same with movies. There was some great movies out when Titanic was out. I'm not a huge fan of Titanic. I don't, not really my type of thing. But it was a phenomenon. There's no doubt about it. It was a blockbuster hit, and it was super popular at the time. And I think there a lot of people might have missed out on some great other entertainment because they were so focused on that, and that commanded so much attention. And I don't like to toot my own horn, but I think that I have some very interesting and unique ways of presenting information and ideas. And I want to play some games and have some fun. And I think a lot of people are missing out if they don't give it a shot. And it's not a matter of being, you know, defeatist, but it you know, why try to be heard when there's a crowd screaming? And I think I'll just wait till Bill's done with the live stream, and I'll come back on, and maybe people who are night owls like me and looking for something to do on a Friday night after Bill shuts down might come in and join in and make an interesting conversation out of this. So we'll catch you back in maybe an hour or so. Talk to you soon.